It started on a dull, foggy evening in mid-October. Jamie, a college sophomore known for her love of all things horror, stumbled upon an intriguing yet unnervingly ordinary Snapchat account named Echoes from the Void. The account promised to send its followers daily snaps of eerie locations around the world at exactly 3:33 a.m. Intrigued and slightly bored, Jamie hit follow and thought little of it afterward. That night, her phone buzzed precisely at 3:33 a.m. Groggily, Jamie reached for her phone, her fingers trembling slightly as the chill of the night air brushed against her skin. The first snap was a grainy image of an old, decrepit asylum hallway, lights flickering, and at the far end, a shadowy figure barely visible. A message overlay read, "Do you see her?" Despite the chill running down her spine, Jamie was hooked. She replied, "Who is she?" There was no response. The next night, another snap arrived at 3:33 a.m. This time, it was a dilapidated playground with a single swing moving back and forth as though someone invisible was there. The message read, "She's waiting." Night after night, the snaps continued, each more unsettling than the last. Jamie started sharing these snaps with her close friend, Max, who was equally fascinated and horrified. They began to speculate about the origins of the snaps and the identity of the mysterious she referred to in the messages. One night, Jamie received a snap that chilled her to the bone. It was a video this time, showing the interior of a house that looked eerily similar to her own. The camera panned slowly from room to room until it stopped at her own bedroom door. A voice whispered, "Soon." Before she could process it, the snap disappeared, leaving no trace it had ever existed. Terrified, Jamie showed Max the place where the snap had been. Although the snap was gone, Max believed her. Together, they decided to investigate the mysterious sender. Their first clue came unexpectedly when Jamie received a snap without the usual 3:33 a.m. timestamp. It was a map pointing to an abandoned lighthouse on the outskirts of their town. The overlay text read, "Meet her." Deciding they needed to confront this head-on, Jamie and Max planned a trip to the lighthouse. They arrived just as the sun was setting, casting long, sinister shadows across the ground. The lighthouse loomed ominously against the twilight sky. As they approached, Jamie's phone buzzed, a new snap. It was a live video from the sender showing them from behind. They were being watched. With every step they took towards the lighthouse, the snaps continued, each one closer and closer, until they were receiving images of their own backs. Once inside, the door slammed shut behind them, and all light seemed to be swallowed by the darkness. Their phones, now their only source of light, flickered erratically. As they ascended the rickety stairs of the lighthouse, a cold wind whistled through the broken windows, carrying whispers that seemed to say, "Up, come up." At the top, they found a room littered with old, yellowed papers and photographs of people with their eyes scratched out. In the center of the room, a phone lay on the floor, its screen cracked but still glowing. Jamie picked up the phone, and as she did, both her and Max's phones pinged in unison. It was a snap from the account, now showing an image of them looking at the phone in the room. The overlay read, "Now you are her." The room grew colder, and a figure materialized in the corner, its features obscured by shadow. Jamie turned to Max, but where he had stood was now just another shadow. The story ends here, leaving Jamie alone in the lighthouse with the apparition, as the truth about the horrifying Snapchat horror story remains tantalizingly out of reach. Jamie's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the apparition forming in the shadowed corner of the lighthouse. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of the sea and something else, something metallic, like blood. Max was gone, seemingly swallowed by the very darkness that was now taking form before her. She clutched the strange phone tightly, her fingers brushing against the cracked screen which flickered under her touch. "Who are you?" Jamie's voice was barely a whisper, her eyes fixed on the shifting shadows. No response came from the figure, but another snap appeared on the phone. This one was different. It was a picture of Max, his eyes wide with fear, and behind him, the same shadowy figure now standing in front of Jamie. The text overlay read, "Closer than you think." Jamie stepped back, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew she had to escape, to get out of the lighthouse and find help. But as she turned towards the stairs, her phone buzzed again. Hesitantly, she looked at the new snap. It was a picture of the lighthouse door, now bolted shut with an old, rusty lock. "No way out," the message on the snap declared ominously. Panicking, Jamie raced downstairs, her footsteps echoing in the empty lighthouse. She reached the door and tugged at it, but it wouldn't budge. The rusty lock held firm, mocking her efforts. As she turned around, her phone lit up with another video snap. This one showed the upstairs room, and she could hear faint, ghostly whispering. The voice was indistinct, yet it beckoned her back upstairs. Defeated and trembling, Jamie ascended once again. Each step creaked under her weight, adding to the cacophony of whispers that now seemed to seep from the very walls. She reached the top and approached the phone lying in the center of the room. Tentatively, she picked it up, and it immediately began to play a new video. The video showed the lighthouse from a distance, through the fog and darkness. A figure, which Jamie could only assume was her, was visible in the window at the top. Then, the camera zoomed in rapidly, the image blurring before focusing sharply on her own terrified face in the present. The overlay text read, "Trapped in the echo." The room grew colder, and Jamie felt a presence behind her. She spun around to face it, her phone's light revealing the ghostly figure now inches from her. It was a woman, her face sorrowful and eyes hollow. She wore a tattered dress that fluttered slightly as if caught in a perpetual breeze. The ghost reached out, her hand almost touching Jamie's face. "Why are you doing this to me?" Jamie managed to choke out, her voice breaking with fear. The ghost's lips moved, but the sound was delayed, as if coming from a great distance. "You are not the first," she whispered, her voice echoing around the room. Jamie's phone vibrated with another snap, this time a photo of several people, all with their eyes scratched out, similar to the photos scattered around the room. Each one looked out in terror. The overlay read, "Each one, a story untold." The ghost spoke again. They did not listen, they did not understand. They, like you, were chosen. But you can still save him. Save Max. How? How can I save him? Jamie pleaded, tears streaming down her face. Find the heart of the lighthouse. Only there can the cycle be broken, the ghost replied, fading into the shadows once more. Jamie wiped her tears and took a deep breath. Her fear was palpable, but the determination to save Max spurred her on. She began searching the room, touching the old, peeling wallpaper, the rough wooden planks of the floor, and the cold, stone walls. Hidden behind a loose stone, she discovered an old, wrought iron key with a tag that read basement. Armed with the key, Jamie descended the lighthouse once more, her resolve hardening with each step. As she reached the bottom, she found a heavy wooden door tucked away under the staircase, previously unnoticed. She inserted the key, its metal cold and heavy in her hand. The lock turned with a loud clunk, and the door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling down into darkness. The basement air was musty and damp, pressing against Jamie as she descended. Her phone, the only source of light, flickered as if struggling against the overwhelming darkness. At the bottom, she found herself in a cavernous room, the walls lined with old maritime artifacts and the remnants of what looked like ritualistic symbols. In the center of the room stood an old, ornate mirror, its surface dusty but intact. Jamie approached it cautiously, her reflection appearing distorted in the flickering light. She touched the glass, and it rippled under her fingers like the surface of water. Suddenly, the mirror glowed, and an image appeared, Max, bound and unconscious, in a room Jamie did not recognize. As she watched in horror, the image shifted, and a dark figure appeared beside him. The message was clear: she was running out of time. The story pauses here, with Jamie standing before the mysterious mirror, the fate of her friend hanging in the balance, and the secrets of the lighthouse beginning to unravel. The echoes of the past call out, and the darkness waits, eager to claim another soul. Jamie's heart pounded in her ears as she stared into the mirror, the image of Max, bound and unconscious, fading into darkness. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the cool, smooth surface of the glass. The mirror seemed to pulse beneath her touch, a heartbeat echoing from within the silver depths. "Where is he?" Jamie whispered into the mirror, her breath fogging up the glass. No response came from the mirror, but her phone vibrated. Another snap appeared, a close-up of an ancient book, its pages yellowed and brittle, lying open on a stone altar. The text overlay read, "The answers lie within." Determined to find Max and break whatever cycle the ghostly woman had spoken of, Jamie searched the basement, her phone's flashlight cutting through the darkness. In a shadowed corner, she found the altar depicted in the snap, the book resting upon it as if waiting for her. She approached cautiously, the air around her growing colder with each step. Opening the book, she found it filled with writings in a language she didn't recognize, accompanied by strange, arcane symbols. However, one page was different. It was newer, the ink still stark against the faded pages. It contained a ritual, written in English, titled The Binding of the Echo. The ritual detailed the method to break a cycle of spirits bound to a place of great tragedy and sorrow. It required the heart of someone who could see and communicate with these spirits, someone like her. Jamie's eyes widened as she realized what the ritual asked of her. She hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. Could she perform this ritual? Would it even work? As she pondered, her phone buzzed again, showing another snap of Max. This time, his eyes were open, filled with terror. "I'm coming, Max," she said out loud, her voice a mix of determination and fear. She took photos of the ritual instructions with her phone, then set about gathering the items listed. Most were already there, scattered around the basement: candles, a small silver knife, a piece of quartz, and an old compass. She arranged the items as instructed, forming a circle around the mirror. Then, following the ritual, she lit the candles, their flames flickering in the drafty air, casting long, dancing shadows across the walls. Taking a deep breath, Jamie began to recite the words from her phone. As she spoke, the air in the basement seemed to thicken, the shadows deepening into an oppressive darkness. The mirror's surface began to ripple again, waves of silver rolling across it as if something beneath was trying to break free. Midway through the ritual, a loud crash echoed through the basement, startling Jamie. She dropped her phone, the light extinguishing, plunging her into darkness. The only light now came from the candles around the mirror. Heart racing, Jamie scrambled to retrieve her phone, the ritual's words still echoing in her mind. As she picked up her phone and turned the flashlight back on, she froze. The ghostly woman stood at the edge of the circle, her face sorrowful, her eyes pleading. "You must finish it," the ghost whispered, her voice barely audible over the howling wind that had started to fill the room. Jamie nodded, returning to her place inside the circle. She continued the ritual, her voice growing more confident with each word. The ground beneath her feet trembled, and a low humming filled the air, vibrating through her bones. Suddenly, the mirror exploded with light, a blinding flash that forced Jamie to shield her eyes. When she looked again, the mirror showed a different scene, a dark, forested area under a night sky. Max was there, still bound, but now outside, under the towering trees. The dark figure stood over him, a shadow with no distinct form. Jamie finished the ritual with a final, emphatic phrase that seemed to echo endlessly around the basement. The light from the mirror surged, enveloping her, the heat intense, but not burning. As the light faded, Jamie found herself no longer in the basement, but in the forest from the mirror. She was standing a few feet away from Max, the dark figure now turning towards her, its form becoming more distinct, more menacing. She looked around frantically and spotted the silver knife from the ritual on the ground beside her. Without hesitating, she grabbed it, her resolve steeling her for what she knew she had to do next. The story pauses here, with Jamie facing the dark figure in a final confrontation under the watchful eyes of the ancient trees, the resolution hanging in the balance. In the dense, shadowy forest, Jamie stood her ground, the silver knife clutched tightly in her hand. The dark figure, now taking a more human shape, advanced towards her, its movements smooth and unnervingly silent. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine, mixed with a tang of fear that hung palpably between them. "Stay back," Jamie warned, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to sound brave. The figure halted, tilting its head slightly, as if curious about her defiance. "Why do you resist?" The figure's voice was like a whisper of wind through the leaves, cold and emotionless. "You cannot change what has been ordained." "I can try," Jamie retorted, her grip tightening on the knife. "I won't let you take him." The figure chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down Jamie's spine. "It is not him I want. You are the one who called me here, with your fear, your curiosity. You opened the door, Jamie." Panic surged through her, but Jamie pushed it down, focusing on the image of Max lying bound a few yards away. She needed to be strong for him. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice steadier now. "Only what was promised," the figure replied, stepping closer. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting eerie shadows across its face, revealing nothing but darkness beneath its hood. "No deals," Jamie said. "I'm ending this." With a cry, she lunged forward, thrusting the silver knife into the shadow. The figure moved with astonishing speed, sidestepping her attack with a grace that seemed to belie its menacing presence. Jamie stumbled forward but quickly regained her balance, swinging the knife again. This time, the blade connected, slicing through the shadow. The figure recoiled, a hiss escaping from it as if she had struck a real wound. Encouraged, Jamie pressed on, slashing at the figure repeatedly, each hit seeming to weaken it, causing it to fade bit by bit into the air, like smoke being blown away by the wind. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath her feet. Jamie glanced around, realizing the ritual might be causing more than just the banishment of this dark figure. The forest itself seemed to be reacting, the trees swaying without wind, the ground rumbling with a growing intensity. She needed to finish this, now. Gathering all her strength, Jamie charged at the figure, who was now barely more than a wisp of darkness. She thrust the knife forward with both hands, putting all her weight behind the attack. The blade passed through the figure, and with a final, ear-splitting shriek, it dissipated completely, leaving Jamie alone in the suddenly silent forest. Breathing heavily, Jamie dropped to her knees, the knife falling from her limp hands to the soft earth. It was over. She looked over to where Max had been lying. He was sitting up now, groggily rubbing his wrists where the ropes had bound him. "Jamie?" he called out, his voice weak but filled with relief. She crawled over to him, her energy nearly spent. "I'm here," she said, reaching out to help him to his feet. "What happened?" Max asked, looking around the dark forest, then back at her. "Did you?" Jamie nodded, managing a tired smile. "It's gone. The cycle is broken." They supported each other as they walked back towards the path that would lead them out of the forest. As they emerged from the tree line, the first light of dawn was breaking across the sky, painting the world in hues of gold and pink. They paused, looking back at the forest one last time, both knowing they had narrowly escaped a fate far worse than they could have imagined. "You saved me," Max said, squeezing her hand. "We saved each other," Jamie corrected him, her smile growing as she looked up into the sky, welcoming the warmth of the rising sun on her face. As they walked away, the forest behind them remained silent, the shadows receding with the night. But unknown to Jamie and Max, deep within the heart of the forest, beneath the ancient soil, the mirror lay buried, its surface still intact, reflecting the first light of dawn. The story of the lighthouse, the ghostly apparitions, and the dark figure might have ended, but the echoes of the past lingered, waiting for the next curious soul to stumble upon them. The story concludes here, leaving the door slightly ajar for future tales, as the forest and its secrets continue to exist, silently watching the world change around them, ready to ensnare anyone who dares to uncover its mysteries.